right, so welcome everyone. Today we are going to be concluding the book of Romans, but not just the last two chapters. Today also marks the end of a 365-day journey that was started last year, February. I was led to start this channel, and almost immediately the Holy Spirit sort of gave me an instruction that at the time seemed pretty straightforward. If I'm going to be honest, it felt easy. He told me, post a video every day for the next 365 days. And as I was reminiscing earlier today, because today has been emotional, I feel like I had a vision of how I would feel on the 365th day, and I felt the complete opposite. I had a thought though as I was reminiscing today, and I'm like, I'm thankful that God only shows us the destination. He never shows us the process. Because if I knew what I know now before he gave that instruction or when he gave that instruction, I don't think I would have ever started the journey. Like I said, like I've dreamt of today for many months. I remember when I got to day 65, I was like, what? Like the level of pain, and I'm like, we still have 300 days to go. Like, do I have to complete this? And for many months I've dreamt, I'm like, man, I can't imagine what day 365 would feel like. And right now I feel like Joseph. Who remembers Joseph? When God showed him the dream, he showed him his brothers were going to be bowing down to him. He was excited. He was super excited to share his dream with everybody. But years later, when that dream would eventually become a reality, he cried. He cried. Because when he had to think through what he went through to get to the manifestation of the promise, it was filled with a lot of pain. And I also think of Abraham. Abraham, who had always dreamed of having a child with Sarah. When the child would eventually come, he did not realize that it would cost him Ishmael. And so for every prize, there's a price. Even Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, even though he knew that his death would bring salvation to the entire world, when it would be manifested, it will cost him his life. But I also love the process, because even though it has taken a lot of sacrifice, when you see the impact that it has had on the lives of many, all the pain fades away. Especially here when I see the level of growth that a lot of you guys have had, it brings me joy. It feels like a woman who is in labor and she's going through the labor pangs, the pain of delivery. And as soon as that baby is birthed, all the thought of the pain fades away as well. And I'll be honest, like it was this morning, I suddenly realized that the letter of Paul to the Romans, in summary, is actually a very detailed breakdown of the most important verse in the Bible. Because when Jesus was with us, he said that the entire book, the entire law, the entire Bible can be summarized in one verse. Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. The book of Romans can literally be summarized in that one verse. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so as Paul, and you're going to see what I mean in a second, as Paul through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit begins to provide a practical extrapolation of this verse. And here's why I say that, because Paul uses the message of the gospel to reveal the love of God to us. But guess what? That verse actually says we should love God with all our hearts, not that God should love us with all his heart. And you're going to see why I say that, because 1 John 4:19 says something very interesting. It says we love him, and the KJV says we love him because he first loved us. Why is that important? It means that our ability to love God with all our heart is only predicated on our ability to receive his love for us first. And it is through that love we are now able to love our neighbor as ourselves. And so now you see why Paul, through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, had to reveal the love of God to us, because it's only through understanding how he first loved us that love is able to be deposited in our heart, strong enough for us to now release it to our neighbors. And so I discovered that Paul actually followed this pattern in his letter, because in order to reveal the love of God through the gospel, he had to use a technique that I've shared here before called good cop, bad cop. Because good news doesn't start with good news. Good news starts with the bad news. We cannot truly appreciate good news if we don't know what the bad news is first. And so the Holy Spirit gave me a story in my heart to illustrate this. In order to reveal the love of God to the Roman church at this point, Paul had to send in the bad cop. Because between Romans 1 and Romans 3, he begins to talk to two sects of people. Let's call them two brothers. One is a Gentile, one is a Jew. And the bad cop comes in to question them because he needs them to confess to their sins. And so the bad cop walks in and he's beginning to tell them, you know what, we have enough evidence to sentence the both of you to life imprisonment. Not just that, there's also a death penalty attached to this. The judge has looked at the case and it's a slam dunk. You're never going to be able to leave this place. You'll never get to see your family again. You'll never be free. Your execution dates have already been set as well. And out of the two brothers, one had been a career criminal, but the other one, this was his first offense. And so in his mind, he's thinking, don't I get an advantage since this is just my first offense? This is the Jewish person speaking. If you remember, the Jewish people were like, hold on, we've been the custodians of the law. We've circumcised ourselves. We have served God the longest. Don't we get an advantage? And so this second brother is like, I've never had a record. Don't I get an advantage? Why do I suddenly get the death penalty? But the bad cop is like, just because this is the first offense that you've been caught for doesn't mean that you're actually innocent. The court has actually done an audit on your life. And we've seen that you've been evading tax for about 30 years. Actually, this is a young guy. Let's say about 10 years, right? You've been evading tax. There's a lot more that you were never charged for. But now that we've done an audit on your life, we've actually found a long list of things that you've been doing wrong. So at this point, he keeps quiet. He's like, my goodness, they found out. You're both guilty and you're going to die. And so the bad cop leaves. Then Paul sends in the good cop of mercy. Because the bad cop was the bad cop of the law. That was the law coming in to show them how bad they were. But then Paul sends in mercy at some point in this letter. And as he begins to speak to them, he's like, you know what? Everything the bad cop said was true. But today is your lucky day because someone came in earlier today and confessed to all the crimes that have been charged to both your accounts. And he has already been executed. All you need to do right now is just sign this document that says that you did nothing and you're going to be free to go. All your charges will be wiped clean. All your rights as citizens will be restored to you fully. And so in their excitement, they sign it quickly. Their life, which was once in black and white because it became so dim, they couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. We are going to rot in this place for life. Finally, they get a big break. Somebody, who is this person? But somebody did it. Let's sign it. All of a sudden, their life that was once in black and white suddenly become colorful. And as they walk out, they see their mom. Her eyes light up. But as they look at her, it looks like she's been crying. But as she sees them, her eyes light up and she's trying to disguise that she has been crying. And as they hug her, the brothers are looking around. They're asking like, where's dad? And as they ask that question, the mom breaks down and she begins to speak. He says, he knew you guys wouldn't let him do it. Do what? Like what? Like what are you talking about? And she keeps on talking. He loves you guys so much. He wanted you to have another chance at life. You guys have so much ahead of you, so much potential that the world is yet to see. And at this point, they're like, what are you talking about? And the light bulb goes off in one of their heads. It's like, hold on, is it the one who confessed? And their mom nods, yes. And they're in shock. He sacrificed his life so that the world can get to see the potential in you guys. I want you to imagine being one of those children who has received a new lease on life based on the love of a father. And so through the revelation of this love and what it cost him for you to receive the freedom, that sacrificial love unlocks something within you. It unlocks a reciprocity where if someone could do that for me, then I also want to do it for them. If someone was willing to die for you, how much value did he see in you for him to do that? And so between Romans 1 and Romans 11, Paul begins to reveal the love of God for us. That if we're able to understand how he loved us first, then we'll be able to reciprocate the love for him as well. But remember that verse says, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. You cannot love your neighbor if you do not know how to love yourself. because the way we see others is the way we see ourselves. Think about that. It is the way you see. If you do not like yourself, you cannot like another person. If you see yourself as a liar, you see other people as liars. And so what Jesus did for us, where he sacrificed himself, he came to unlock an understanding of the value that he has placed on our life, that we are worth the death of God. If you've ever felt like I don't have any value, someone died in order for you to live. There's no amount of sacrifice that beats that. Why would anybody do that? There's something in you that God died to save. That God said this has to be revealed. Whatever I've deposited in you needs to be revealed to the world. It is worth coming to the earth to die for. That's how valuable you are. And so are you seeing the progression? Is that God died to show you his love so that you can see how valuable you are. Love yourself. Because when you're able to love yourself, now you are able to love others. And that is what Romans 12 to 15 now comes to reveal, because we've been seeing how Paul now begins to reveal to us that based on this mercy that God has shown you, Romans 12 says that you ought to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. This should be your reasonable worship. It should be your reasonable response to what Christ did for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to know how to hear from God using the Bible, I'd love to invite you to a live Bible study session that is happening every single day, Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. EST, where I show you how to not just read the Bible for information, but how to meditate on it for revelation, because revelation is the key to your transformation. Take care. Bye-bye.